Give it a second here. Just want to make sure that we're all good. All right, we're just going to start.
Right.
All right, so we want to welcome everybody who's on the who's attended tonight's Noche de Resistencia. My name is Eric Carvajal, a member of Unión del Barrio. Been a member of Unión del Barrio for I think a little bit over 9 years now, both in San Diego and Los Angeles, and in different capacities. And I'm really happy to be the host here. I want to introduce some of my comrades. Armando Abundis, if you could just raise your hand, say hey. And Adriana Hasso de Simon, raise your hand. Right. Should say wave your fist, right? So yeah, we want to welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about our Noche de Resistencia. In our Noche de Resistencia, talking about our community patrols, right? Our community patrols are a project of Unión del Barrio that we instituted in the early 90s, I believe 1992. We've been doing these community patrols really off and on, but really in the last few years, really consistently. I would say within the last 10 years, a lot more consistently. You know, these community patrols that we will talk about in a second, you know, consist of, you know, following and videotaping and documenting both police and ICE, Border Patrol. We've been doing this work for, again, since the early 90s. Unión del Barrio is an organization that started in San Diego in 1981, August 29th, 1981. So we've been around a long time as an organization, you know, a little over 3 decades now. And so a lot of the work that we do has been work that we've done throughout the entire time of our existence, but really like refine it. And we're constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly redeveloping our tactics and their effectiveness as we learn, right? Because nobody is born an expert in revolution. No one's born an expert in activism. It's all learned in our actions and on our tactics are things that we've been doing and we've learned throughout our entire careers of grassroots organizing. And so, again, we're Unión del Barrio. We've been around since 1981. We're an organization that's multi-generational, multiracial, but really focusing in on the Mexican community in particular. Not that we don't work in solidarity with other communities, but we particularly focus on ours, right? And we find no shame at all in that. So we want to start by sharing, talking a little, we're going to start today talking a little bit about what's happening with deportations, what's happening with ICE, and talking about the Deportation Moratorium. And then we're going to be going into the community patrol. So right now there's a moratorium on deportations. That's about 100 days. And Adriana's going to explain a little bit about that, a lot more in depth about it. And I'm about to share my screen so that you all can see the presentation. So give me a second here.
Yeah, in the meantime, I think it's important to talk about that. That I think everybody heard about those 100 days and how, some people from the community are probably thinking that or are under the wrong impression. So we are here to kind of like clarify all that and give us a little bit of knowledge on that, so that we can sort of clarify and everybody to be in the same page of what exactly this so-called moratorium supposed to is supposed to entail, right? Anything anything to add, Elena, on just to frame the conversation of melting the ice? Because a lot of people are probably wondering what exactly does that mean, or melting the ice.
Yeah, thank you. And I think coming to a space that challenges us with not the ability to interact with people, to have presence in the community because of everything that has been going on for almost a year now with COVID. This level of interaction and level of connecting with community is always a challenge. And as you can see, we're having a little bit of trouble with accessing the PowerPoint presentation that we have in place, but it doesn't mean that we can dive into the conversation and contextualize why this conversation is timing, and why, as Unión del Barrio, we see and understand that our political context of organizing is that much more challenging, because for so many decades and so many times that elections come and go, the idea and the illusion that the Democrats are our friends and that they're going to come and save our community and that they're going to finally reform the immigration system, that that our communities should just be patient and wait, although, as we know, many years, decades have gone by without our communities experiencing any kind of relief or any kind of help or support in a real concrete way. So what we know is that ICE continues to be active. That is an agency well-funded, that millions, billions actually of dollars come their way to support the systems of detecting, detaining, arresting, and deporting members of our communities. So I think I saw something on the chat that since Biden took power, Biden-Harris administration, over 26,000 people have been deported. That is correct. The number is actually 26,248 people since the inauguration of the new administration. It is important to highlight that most of these deportations are members of brothers and sisters from Honduras, from Guatemala, from Haiti, from some from South Africa, as well. As we look on the news, we know that Haiti is going through unprecedented political unrest, and that just as deportations have an impact here of people being torn from their families, also returning to countries where a lot of the political unrest and violence has the impact also to displace or not really have the embracing or the opening for members of the community that are being deported to some of these countries. So it is important to keep in mind that if we can go to the next slide, maybe just to explain a little bit of what the priorities of enforcement. As we know right now, the idea that ICE is not going to come into contact with people and question people, detain people, arrest people is, it's not accurate, it's not factual. We know that even under the 100-day moratorium on deportations, because of the decision that took place from Texas, from the judge in Texas, the TRO, what do you call this? the freezing of that decision, basically, that puts it on hold, continues to have impact, and so not until next week, actually February 23rd, is when the judge is going to revisit the TRO decision that took place 2 days after the moratorium was announced by Biden. So what we know right now is that ICE has three priorities of enforcement: national people who they consider to be national security concern, the border security. We know they're under Title 42. Any person or people that crosses in an official way or undocumented way, they are automatically deported. It is important to know that the Trump administration used the situation of emergency and implemented a quick, expedited return for people who came to any part of the U.S.-Mexico border, and people are automatically returned. So the 26,000 people are part of that. People who just came, who attempted to or who were successful at crossing under Title 42, people are automatically returned. And anyone that the administration or the agency thinks as public safety. We also have to keep in mind that there are close to 15,000 people in detention facilities for immigration reasons. So all these things to say that we know the agency is well funded, has a history of committing abuses, and that they're going to fight back. They're going to fight back against the Biden-Harris administration, and then they're not going to be, they're not going to give it up. They're not going to be like, okay, well, if this administration is not 100% with us, as Trump was, then, we're okay without, committing abuses and harassing families and harassing and intimidating and threatening entire communities. So I wanted to just make sure that, and I'm sure that people out there, especially who might be part of the work at the national level, know that deportations have not stopped, that the Biden administration probably has and had very good, well-meaning intentions to fix certain things, but the systems of detention and the systems that get lots of money are in place to continue to keep that level of power and domination against our communities. So for that reason, the community patrols continue to be essential. We say and we stand with the right to defend our communities, the right to be here, to stand with our communities and to defend ourselves. Because the reality is that this agency is an agency that was created to terrorize people, to terrorize communities, to intimidate people, and to somehow have the power to decide who is in this country, who should be, and who deserves the right to be here or not. So with that, I think Armando has a really good way of illustrating and getting really into the specifics of what is needed to create this model of work in your communities. So thank you, Eric, for the space, and we hope to have an engaging conversation with the people who've joined us.
Yep, I appreciate those words. And, I think a lot of folks kind of breathe this sigh of relief when the last president was taken out. But really, you hit it right on the head, right? I think you and Armando both is, Obama was the deporter in chief and Biden was his lieutenant. And that is how we have to frame this discussion. We cannot allow just a quick change into what was before to just give us a, let us feel like all of a sudden we're free or we have some kind of breathing room. Our necks were stepped on before Trump, and they're continuing to be stepped on even now. And those are the necks of our community, irrespective of whether there's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. So with that, Armando, I'm going to move into the next
slide. Thank you, compañero. welcome everybody to our to the Melted Ice Noche de Conciencia. Yeah, my part is gonna be a little bit more kind of like defining a little what is it that we do every week, and we have been doing since focusing on immigration since 2018 July. So you know, the patrols have not stopped since that date, and since July of 2018 all the way into now, with a couple of days off that we have taken due to there is brothers and sisters that get sick and whatnot. So that has kind of like made us stop our patrols. The patrols happen every week, twice a week, right? And we pick at different neighborhoods and different hours to go out there. And the purpose, let's make sure that we need to understand this. Our purpose is to defend communities, right? And to stop harassment and kidnappings. We do believe that they are kidnappings. It meets all the requirements of a kidnapping. It's taking people out of their communities and asking for ransom in the form of bail and to pay a lawyer. So we believe those are kidnappings of our families and the working class. We all have an uncle or a cousin or a friend or somebody who has been kidnapped in this manner. Also, we need to be very clear. We are here not only to patrol and document, which is obviously one of the primary reasons, but we're also here to teach people and how to how to exercise self-defense, right? We're promoting self-defense and empower communities. And eventually, hopefully, they form their own patrols in their neighborhoods because they know it better than anybody else, and to protect others. So that is the goal. The goal is to have self-defense of the communities by those members that live in those communities. Also, to avoid the separation of families, right? I remember a few years back, I believe 2019 or so, everybody was, really upset of how the separation of families was happening at the border. Well, separation of families continue to happen every day. Like the compañero on the chat, Ignacio and Adriana point out, over 26,000 people just this year since Biden took over have been separated from their families. These are people that were over here to work. We don't know the particulars, but those are separations that eventually it breaks the family, right, in some way or another. If we could go to the next slide. This is the if you are familiar with San Diego, I know there's a lot of people out there that are not from San Diego, but these are the communities that we serve here in San Diego, right? Because this program of patrolling the communities, looking for specifically for ICE, started reactivated itself right here in San Diego, even though we have chapters in other places. We served the community of Linda Vista, which was the first one. Then we went to Logan Heights, the community of Shelton, the community of City Heights, and Escondido, or the area of North County. And we're pretty soon going to start in National City. So, this is the first, we're announcing it right here. It's a premiere. Everybody, you're the first ones to hear it. The community patrols are coming. We are now moving to other neighborhoods. And the neighborhood National City is going to be one that I think in its probably some of the same service, not service, but some of the same patrolling, because it is a heavily populated by working class Mexican people and Filipino. So yeah, those are the communities that we serve, and hopefully we can expand later on. If we can go to the next one, the next slide. Yeah, one more. There you go. it comes automatically. Perfect. Yeah. So what exactly are we looking for when we're out there? How do we know? How do we find the ICE vehicles, right? So we're looking for American made cars. American made cars are usually Ford, Chevy, GMC, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. All of the ones that you see here. If you can hit it one more. Yeah, even Hummer and Tesla. Those are American made cars. But we are going to concentrate. We're going to go to the next slide. On this four, right? We have noticed that these are the primary cars that ICE is using right now. They're using Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, and Dodge primarily. Those are the four brands of cars. These are cars that are made here in the United States, and I would think that because they are a federal agency, they buy American, right? That's just my assumption. I don't know if that's the case. Next one. Here are some of the photos that we have actually, compañeros have taken out on the field, right? These are actual field vehicles being used in some of the deportations and or surveillance operations in which we had either captured and documented these vehicles and all those neighborhoods that I mentioned. And this is the primarily one. This is the car. If anybody recognizes it, is the Ford Explorer, right? This is and it comes in several. They use it, of course, in all colors. I will say the gray one is the one that we encounter the most. But also they have them without with the rims or without the black rims. That's another style of car. But what this is distinctive of all of them is that they have really dark tinting on the windows, and it's actually illegal to have this degree of tinted windows in your car. You can get a ticket if you're a civilian. So so it is pretty easy to find it. The other way that we can find them pretty easily is that none of them have plates. They all have dealer plates, or sometimes even nothing, right? So those are the three telltales that we look for every time that we're out there. And when we find a car like that, immediately we go and investigate, right? We go and investigate to make sure if it meets all the requirements, being an American car, the tint is too dark and has no plates, it just raises all the red flags for us to take it a little bit further and investigate. Next one.
You might want to rebrand that as the Ford Colonizer.
The Ford Colonizer, yes, that might be a good name. These are other cars, that are also being used out there as a Chevy Suburban or Tahoe, right? I put them both, even though probably it's not depicted there, but we have encountered both of them. The Chevy Silverado and the Dodge Caravan, the Charger, and the Durango. These are the most used cars. Usually in big operations, all of those brands are out there. All of these type of cars are out there, and they're very easy. They're not easy to spot, but if you know your neighborhood, right? If you know your neighborhood, you know which cars don't belong there, and what what cars actually belong to your neighbor and which ones don't. So if you see all those three red flags, I mean, it's going to be most likely it's going to be ICE. Police actually use the same type of vehicles. We understand that, but local police, we have find that they do have a plate. They have a plate and they have a letter E on it. So they're not circulating without plates or just dealer plates. So it's a modality that they differentiates both of them. Next. So what happens if we witness abuse by ICE, or we find or PD, or if you find somebody, one of these cars out there, right? Well, you need to know that it's when you're going to document anything, you are not allowed to interfere. Neither are we. We never interfere if there is a deportation. What we have find out is that usually our presence along either makes them leave, because they usually leave within a couple minutes, if not immediately, right? So you either you either stop the deportation, or made the community aware that there is a car that is not supposed to be there, and therefore their cover is blown, right? So it's legal, right, to film the police from a public private place, and it's always lawful, and they cannot arrest you for simply filming them, right? I mean, as long as you're filming, it's completely legal. The next one.
That's not to say that they won't try.
Correct. I mean, they will always try to give one up on you, or tell you that they're going to arrest you, and I'm pretty sure that they could arrest you on Trump charges, but they cannot arrest you for filming. I mean, it's completely legal. If you have a contact with an agent, when we're out there, when we're on patrol, we get. Oh wait, what happened here? Just repeat it. Go to the next one. Sorry. So there is. What is the distance? There is no magic distance per se, but we usually try to keep away like 15 feet, give them space, right? And there's in an area, the law, like for example, when you are has been decisions about filming police and or ICE activities. It's completely legal, but the distance has never been like clarified by the law. So that's why we think 15 feet is going to be more than enough. Next one. The next one is basically we have a video to show you of something that happened. This happened in October 30th of 2018. We have more recent videos, but we just wanted to show you this one because it is it kind of shows you everything that that we have been doing out there, and it's kind of like emblematic of it. Also, just to set it up before you hit that, we found there's two parts to this video, but we're only going to show the second part, so that we don't take that much time. The first part, we found them in front of a laundromat, and they took off. We follow them, and this is what happened, right? It's we kind of like they knew we were up to them. We blown their cover, so now it's just up to us to see that they leave the area so that we can clear it out. So if you can play it. I think you have to, for the sound. There you go.
All right, he found us, and now
Just started again.
he's at a dead end, so we're gonna get out.
We'll restart it.
No, right there. Yeah, just let it go.
Oh, we're gonna pull over now. Yeah. Pull right there. All right, he found us, and now he's at a dead end, so we're gonna get out.
So there is the gray car. You can see it right there. So you see, it almost crashed into the other car. They were so nervous. They were probably as nervous as we were. And what they're doing right there is that they're taking down our license plates. They're taking photos of our license plates or the cars that we're utilizing. So that happens all the time.
Ahí va otro, ahí va otro. Diles el radio.
Yeah. So that was another car. They're always usually minimum of 2 cars, or sometimes I've seen as much as 8 of them.
So, compa, ¿qué es lo que pasó ahorita?
Ahorita pues hicimos toda una circulación aquí de la vecindad y lo encontramos de nuevo, no solo uno, pero ahora 2 vehículos de la Migra. Ya podemos confirmar que sí son agencias de ICE. Ahorita está circulando aquí en el área de Shelton, así que raza, póngase trucha. Hay que estar al tanto de que existen operativos que están realizándose aquí, y pues hay que organizarnos, raza. Ahorita es el momento de defender a nuestras familias y denunciar todo tipo de separación familiar y ataque a nuestra comunidad.
Porque liberación exige ¿qué, compa?
Liberación exige organización, hay que estar organizados.
Es todo. We'll be back.
So yeah, that's a little sample of what goes on out there. Every time we find them, they usually take off, and then we catch up to them, and then we usually follow or try to follow them, to the freeway, just to make sure that they leave the area, and then we just on Facebook Live we announce it. There was one more slide. I wanted to put the number.
I'm about to punch it up. Give me a second.
Okay. So it's like I said, what we're trying to do is kind of like to build a patrol group within everybody's neighborhood, right? We're more than happy to help in the effort. If anybody will be interested, we're always open. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we understand right now a lot of people will not like to attend a training or anything like that. But we had changed also the way we operate. We are always trying to adapt to because ICE is doing the same thing. They're adapting. They're doing operations in a different way. So what I wanted to show is this. If there are 2 main ways in which the people out there is contacting us, right? I know there's some people don't like to do phone calls, but a lot of people still do, especially people in our community. They are in need of an operation like the one that we're running. They can call us at this number, 619-537-586, or they could always go to Facebook, our Facebook page, and send us a message. Both of these outlets are monitored, on I want to say closely to 24 hours, if not 24 hours. There's always somebody on the phone, and there is always somebody on Facebook that could answer the question or take the report. Usually what comes into us is a report like, hey, I have this suspicious car, blah, 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 right? And then we usually try to allocate a unit to go and check it out, and then we just record it. So with that, I think that's pretty much all that I have to say. Gracias. Thank you very much for everybody to listen. And I think there was a few, I see at least one question and a bunch of comments on the chat. So I don't know how we want to do this.
So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Facebook Live too. If folks want to ask questions on the Facebook Live, we're monitoring that as well. So go ahead and feel free to ask a question there. Armando, do you want to address the question that's in the chat?
It says, UDP disrupts their clandestine kidnapping operations. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do. That is something that we do. We try to do at least. We don't always catch them, but when we catch them, we make sure that they know. We also have changed our tactics in which we carry a bullhorn with us, and we let everybody know that they're there. The other question is there a way to obtain this presentation? I think I need to check with Unión del Barrio. All of us are just members, and the people that produces these things, it'll be up to Unión del Barrio propaganda to see if we can share this one. I don't see a problem, but we just need to get it clear.
Yeah, and it may also be reposted. This webinar might also be reposted on our social media. So if that's done, you can feel free to grab the slides there as well, and download the recording if you can. But this work is not anything that we created, right? Like, this work has been done by organizations before us. It's being done by other organizations now. This is just our version of these community patrols, right? When we go back in history, we look back at the Black Panther parties. They had something similar, right? The Brown Berets way back in the day, they had something similar. We're just carrying on that legacy, that same legacy, and adapting it to our reality, right? Like, recognizing that we're not in the 1960s anymore. We're 60 years after the 1960s, but we do see that a lot of these problems are consistent, and they're still alive in our community, and we're finding ways in modern times to revamp this tactic and to defend our communities. And so, I think there's some folks that may act like a lot of times in the activist communities, like they're the creators of some of these tactics, and we recognize that we're not. We simply we take history, we learn from it, we adapt it to our present, and then we form our tactics around our current reality, right? I think that's really important to highlight, because that's we're not the first, but we're definitely, I would say, one of the most consistent, especially within the last 10 years.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think, Carla, yeah, I will, just to answer somebody in the chat, Carla, yes, I will save your email, and we'll get back to you with the answer for the presentation. And there's another question that says, how do people do the training for the community patrols? Well, all they have to do is get a minimum of 4 people within their neighborhood, and within a particular area that they would like to patrol, and they need to be committed to do so. And we'd be more than happy to go over there and train on what is it that we do, go a little bit more in depth on some of the equipment, go a little bit more in depth on the security of all of us, right? What not to do, and how to engage officers that are overzealous and trying to, to approach us. So the training goes, it's way more in depth than this. This is just kind of like to give an overview of what is it that happens out there when we're happening. But if anybody feels that they have 4 other people they would like to start a patrol, by all means, let us know. And if you allow me, Eric, I would like to repeat that in Spanish, if it's possible. Sí, hay una pregunta que dice ¿cómo se puede integrar un entrenamiento comunitario para patrullar en contra de ICE. Pues es muy simple, y si se necesitan 4 personas por lo mínimo que tengan el tiempo y las ganas de hacerlo, y si quieren hacerlo, comuníquense con nosotros y nosotros definitivamente podemos presentar un entrenamiento más a fondo acerca de qué es lo que hacemos, qué hacer cuando un oficial nos acerca, nos hace preguntas, qué hacer, qué tipo de equipo utilizamos, unas cuestiones de seguridad propia, cosas de ese tipo que van mucho más a fondo de la presentación esta, ¿no?
I think Adriana, I wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add to an earlier question that was posed almost as we started. I think somebody asked about, can you be as specific or describe a little bit more on what defense, what this concept of self-defense or community self-defense, which I think is key, right? I think, Eric, you mentioned that this type of model or the style of work or patrolling communities or protecting communities is, it happens in other places. I know I've seen some really interesting work in New York, New Jersey, from some of the grassroots people who are just sick and tired. I think this also applies to some of the extreme impunity and brutality, violence from the police, right? That and inciting and connecting to the important history of the Black Panther Party. That was community patrols against the police that were able to push back against the brutality, but also the ongoing violence that was taking place against the Black community of those days. And obviously now that's not news or hasn't changed in many ways. But I wanted to just emphasize on the question of defense. What do we mean by reaffirming and confirming that from our perspective, and when we say kidnapping and when we use that terminology and the terrorizing communities, because Unión del Barrio comes from the perspective that we're not immigrants, that we're not foreign to these lands, or that we're not irrelevant to the life of our communities. We don't recognize the border as officially understood, right? That delineates de aquí para allá México y de allá para acá Estados Unidos. We stand on the historical understanding that these were Mexican lands, these are native lands, and that we don't recognize the authority that the government gives itself to decide who gets to stay or who has papers or doesn't have papers. We very much unite with the say, sin papeles y sin miedo, because we recognize that our histories to thousands of years go back to our ancestors being inhabiting these lands, and that we will continue to fight for the right to exist. And for us, defending our communities and standing in unity and challenging front and pushing forward against ICE and Border Patrol is just one of the ways, one of the models that we are able to put the question of defending our community into practice. And hopefully other people will see that there is creativity, and there's also the alternative of deciding for ourselves what changes we want to see and create those changes. Because by the time the Congress and the Senate and the White House get their act together, and if reform happens, which we hope that it happens, at the same time our communities are being attacked, will continue to be attacked, and we need to be able to respond and create an alternative that truly speaks of what we want to see and what kind of future we want to provide to our children. So we define defense as the ability to exist and the need to defend our communities against any type of attack, including the attacks from ICE and Border Patrol and other repressive agencies.
Eric, would you like to add anything?
I think it's all been said.
Okay.
Right. And I think for those folks watching, like, you have to understand, like, we're everyday people, right? Like everybody who's watching and who's on the Zoom with us, we're not these kind of like aliens from space, kind of activist people from other communities, right? These are the communities we live in. These are the areas where we shop in. These are the areas where we go, and get food to go, right? We're everyday folks who have jobs and careers and kids, et cetera. And so there's not, I want to take like some of the mystery out of this, because I think a lot of times people get intimidated or they kind of like put activists up on a pedestal, but we're everyday people, and this is we've decided that we've had enough, right? And you know, we decided to stand up with our communities, and I don't think we can emphasize that enough, right? Because I think there's a lot of folks who try to third-party activists, but we are in our communities that we patrol. We are part of our community, and we will defend our community, you know, against any and all impunity, right? So, so we appreciate everyone who's been on. We know that there's a lot of folks that are asking for Spanish translation. We're going to be working on that for the next set. So we appreciate that feedback, and we'll be taking that into account, especially because so much of our community does only speak Spanish. So we appreciate that feedback. I don't know if there's any other questions for us.
Yeah, there was a question on the chat from Joshua. They want to know if they have 4 people, but they are not local, meaning San Diego. Can we set up a Zoom meet to go over the training? Absolutely, that could definitely be arranged. It'll be pretty much like this, you know. That is definitely something that we can do at you know, even I think you're in New Jersey. Is that what you, or something like that? But yeah, most definitely, absolutely.
Awesome.
Any other questions, you think? We have about 15 minutes, so anybody wants to add something or any other questions, you know. I think it was good the way everybody has been, Adriana and Eric has been emphasizing the fact, you know, that changing of the president. I mean, it is always good that Trump is gone, right? Obviously, but you know, we need to understand that Biden was the second in command when Obama was president, and Obama has deported more people than anybody in history. Let me say that in Spanish. Es bueno que ya no esté Trump en la presidencia, pero hay que recordar que Biden fue el vicepresidente cuando Obama era presidente, y Obama deportó a más personas que ningún otro presidente en la historia de los Estados Unidos. So what are we trying to underline, and what we want everybody to understand and get to, if you're going to get something out of this, right? Si usted va a aprender algo de este taller, if you're going to get something out of this workshop, is that Demócratas y los republicanos will always use us as pawns for their political gain. Lo que debemos de aprender de este taller es de que los demócratas y los republicanos, los dos, los van a utilizar como piezas de ajedrez para elegirse y estar en el poder. Eso siempre es lo que va a pasar. Lo que ocupamos, nosotros ponemos al frente el hecho de que ocupamos un partido en el cual nos represente como gente trabajadora, y eso es lo que también Unión del Barrio propone. We also propose, you know, we understand that neither Republicans or Democrats are going to help us out, and Unión del Barrio does, you know, sometimes propose to have another party that represents working class people in our communities. I just wanted to say that. Nomás quería decir eso, subrayarlo, underline it.
So I think there's a question in the chat that says, if we can go over a bit of the revolutions or movements that you study from history and apply to today's situation. And I mean, being in Unión del Barrio for a long time, I can say that we really study all of them. You know, as far back as folks, you know, as our ancestors fighting against the Spanish, right? We really take a hard look at a lot of how folks have fought back over the years, and really, you know, study, you know, revolutions like the Cuban Revolution, the Nicaraguan Revolution, you know, the Zapatistas, all the movements of the 60s and 70s, even those of the 80s that a lot of people are not too familiar with. And we see a lot of these reoccurring themes, right? Like I said, we're not the first group to do this kind of work, and we're definitely not the last. But we learn from all of these, all the mistakes that they made, and we try not to repeat them. But we do study pretty intensely, a lot of social movements and a lot of revolutions. I mean, there's something to learn from all people's struggles. And there's always something to learn also from studying what the other side is doing, as well. So it's all about, so yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. Can I, there's an interesting, there are many interesting aspects of the chat, and I'm just focusing on the chat. I'm sure there are other conversations happening, but as somebody asked about, what do you say when community or a sector of the community may say that you're protecting criminals? Because one of the things that I think it is important to highlight is that the agency, as a repressive agency and incredibly well funded, has been very effective in framing their function and making the public think that they're protecting, or that they're putting us, that they're bringing about safety to communities because they're arresting. And it is incredibly difficult for me to say that, to use their language of criminality and an ongoing really push from them to make the rest of the community say or think that the criminal element is what they're after. Obviously, that's what they say. What we know, as Eric and Armando said, is that the great majority of people that we see that come into contact with ICE are workers. They're members of a community that is typically is working class community. The list of communities that you saw earlier, that we displayed for you of the communities that we do here in the county of San Diego, are just some of the hardest working, poor working class communities. So they can probably frame and say that and claim that they are after criminals, which we don't share, and we fundamentally disagree with that orientation or the lie, because it's a lie. What we know and what we see is that they come and try to kidnap and surveillance members of construction workers, hotel workers, people who are getting ready to work at 5:35 a.m. 5 a.m. they're up and loading up their trucks to go and clean somebody else's homes and make the comfort and the life for a different sector of that community, when they can't even enjoy those comforts, right? Although they worked all their lives. So all this bullshit, in my opinion, that they say that they're after the criminal element, well, all we see is the working element. The many essential workers that that this government seems to or says that they protect, in fact, they're being attacked by this agency. So we don't have a problem if people think that our actions are protecting the sector of the community, because that's not what we see on the ground. And we are not buying the lies of the agency that has been manufacturing and creating slandering our communities, because they see us as a target, and they also see us as a threat, that they need to keep the labor force to a certain level intimidated and at a corner, so that they can get the best out of our working years as workers. So I think it's a fabrication of a lie, and we don't buy it. And the work that we do is we are working for working class people, and we are trying to protect and defend our communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're giving us a list of people that they're going after and be like, oh, we're going after the criminals today, right? All the people who jump bail or something. Like that's not what's going on, right? That's definitely not what's happening. And we're talking about, especially within the last 4 years, a government who's branded Mexicans as criminals, as rapists, branded us that way, and instilled in the psyche of Americans in general that this is what we are. And so, you know, when people say, "Oh, well, you're defending those criminals that are the ICE is running up," it's like, no, that's a narrative that we cannot fall into. That's a narrative that we have to get our people not to buy into as well, right? Because it's not enough for us just to say, you know, we're not going to buy into it, but we have to constantly do these actions and this work so that our community also, you know, breaks free of that narrative, right? Because it's a self-defeating narrative. You know, when the government itself is calling you and your people rapists, when they're calling you criminals, like that is a self-defeating narrative, and it does create, you know, within our community this this kind of overall depression of what we are, like an impression of what we're supposed to be, and that's not true, right? Like even historically speaking, our people have been brilliant. They've brought, you know, all kinds of our people gave life to the rest of the world. All the vegetables and all of the agriculture that we created gave life to, you know, historically to the rest of the world. You know, we had technological advancements far beyond anything that Europe had when they came over here. So criminals we are not.
Right. Absolutely. I think we have just a couple minutes. I don't know if we have any more questions, anyone, that we could answer in those 2 minutes.
La única cosa que sí quisiera decir, porque hubo se puede decir, interés en el aspecto de llevar a cabo la plática en español. Creo que en una hora nos iba a ser muy difícil cubrirlo en ambos idiomas, pero nuestro compromiso es siempre de tratar de invitar y de incluir, obviamente, a las personas también, que en el caso de que se hable el español, creo que quedamos comprometidos de que no hay ningún problema en que llevemos a cabo la conversación en español exclusivamente y podamos entrar más en profundidad sobre la orientación del trabajo y también qué tan importante es el convencimiento y la unidad del resto de la comunidad ante el tema de la defensa comunitaria o de la autodefensa. Entonces, quedamos con ese compromiso porque sí es muy importante para nosotros el poder comunicarnos con todos los sectores de nuestra comunidad.
And with that, we want to thank everyone for joining us, both here on the on Zoom and also on Facebook Live. You know, thank you for your time and your time and for your attention. You know, and understand again, you know, this is Unión del Barrio. This is a part of the work that we do. We don't do just this work, but we also you know, we have our Escuelita Aslan. We do have the Chicano Mexicano Prison Project. We do other kinds of work beyond this, right? We're painting a mural in Chicano Park. And I think it's important to highlight that because there's so many organizations that just kind of focus on one thing. And our organization is multifaceted, multidimensional. And we work in different sectors of our community, right? Whether it's organizing workers, whether it's doing community patrols, painting murals in our community, we really try to be an organization that does it all because our people deserve it. And so with that, I want to thank Adriana and Armando for jumping on this Noche with me. And yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, just one thing. If you see the any suspicious vehicles, give us a call to 619-534-7586. Again, 619-534-7586, or reach us, send us a message at Facebook at Unión del Barrio, and somebody will get back to you. Porque liberación exige organización.
Awesome.
Gracias. Thank you, everyone.